Imagine a vast continent, rich with diverse cultures, untamed wilderness, and unimaginable wealth. This is Africa in the late 19th century, a land teeming with life and potential, but on the brink of an unprecedented transformation. The winds of change were blowing, and they carried with them the ambitions of European powers eager to carve out their own pieces of this magnificent continent. This is the story of the Scramble for Africa, a tale of exploration, exploitation, and the enduring spirit of its people. Our story begins in the bustling streets of London, Paris, Berlin, and other European capitals. The Industrial Revolution had created a hunger for raw materials and new markets. Powerful leaders and influential businessmen set their sights on Africa, captivated by the promise of vast resources and strategic territories. Africa, with its gold, diamonds, rubber, and fertile land, seemed like the answer to Europe's growing appetite. Enter the explorers and adventurers, men like David Livingstone, Henry Morton Stanley, and Pierre Sévourien de Brazza. These intrepid souls ventured into the heart of Africa, braving jungles, deserts, and rivers to map out the unknown. Their tales of exotic landscapes and untold riches fueled Europe's fascination with the continent. But their journeys also revealed the complexities and dangers that lay ahead. In 1884, the Berlin Conference was convened by Otto von Bismarck, the German Chancellor. Representatives from 14 European nations gathered to lay down the rules for the partition of Africa. It was a monumental event, a turning point in history. Decisions were made in elegant rooms far from Africa's shores, with little regard for the people who called the continent home. Boundaries were drawn on maps, and spheres of influence were established, setting the stage for the scramble that would follow. With the groundwork laid at the Berlin Conference, the race to claim African territories was on. European nations scrambled to send expeditions and establish control over vast regions. Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, Portugal, and Italy all vied for dominance. They signed treaties with local leaders, sometimes through deceit, and planted their flags on African soil. The continent became a patchwork of European colonies, each vying for supremacy. The arrival of European powers had profound effects on African societies. Traditional systems of governance were disrupted, and new boundaries were drawn, often splitting communities and ethnic groups. Europeans imposed their own laws, economies, and ways of life. The exploitation of resources led to forced labor, and African people found themselves working in mines, plantations, and railways under harsh conditions. The social fabric of many African communities was torn apart. Despite the overwhelming power of the European colonizers, African resistance was strong and resilient. Leaders like Shaka Zulu, Samori Touré, and Queen Nzinga fought bravely against the encroaching forces. In Ethiopia, Emperor Menelik II achieved a stunning victory over Italy at the Battle of Adwa, securing his country's independence. These acts of defiance inspired future generations and became symbols of African resilience and pride. As European powers consolidated their control, they established colonial administrations to govern their territories. They built infrastructure such as roads, railways, and ports to facilitate the extraction of resources. Education and healthcare were introduced, but often with the aim of serving the colonizers' interests. Missionaries played a significant role in spreading Christianity and Western values. While some Africans benefited from these changes, many faced discrimination and oppression. The economic exploitation of Africa was ruthless. Europeans extracted vast quantities of minerals, crops, and other resources to fuel their industries back home. African economies were reshaped to serve the needs of the colonizers. Cash crops like cocoa, coffee, and rubber replaced traditional farming practices, leading to food shortages and economic dependency. The wealth generated from Africa's resources rarely benefited the local population. The encounter between Africa and Europe also led to a cultural exchange. African art, music, and traditions fascinated Europeans, while African societies were exposed to new ideas, technologies, and lifestyles. This cultural blending had both positive and negative aspects. While it led to innovations and new forms of expression, it also contributed to the erosion of traditional cultures and the imposition of foreign values. The scramble for Africa set the stage for a long and arduous journey toward independence. Throughout the 20th century, African nations fought for their freedom from colonial rule. Movements for independence gained momentum, inspired by leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, and Patrice Lumumba. The struggle for liberation was marked by both peaceful protests and violent conflicts, ultimately leading to the decolonization of Africa in the mid-20th century. The legacy of the scramble for Africa is complex and multifaceted. While it brought modernization and development to some regions, it also left deep scars. The arbitrary borders drawn by European powers continue to affect African politics and society. The economic exploitation and social disruption of the colonial era have had lasting consequences. Yet, Africa's resilience and spirit endure, and the continent continues to rise, embracing its rich heritage and forging a new future. As we conclude our journey through the scramble for Africa, it is essential to reflect on the lessons and legacies of this tumultuous period. The European quest for control over Africa reshaped the continent in ways that continue to echo today. While the scramble brought infrastructure and some modernization, it also caused significant harm, leaving deep-rooted challenges for the future. One of the most lasting impacts is the arbitrary borders drawn by the colonizers, often without regard for the cultural, ethnic, and linguistic diversity of African societies. These borders have led to ongoing conflicts and tensions, as communities find themselves divided or forced together in ways that disrupt traditional patterns of life. Despite these challenges, African nations have shown remarkable resilience and adaptability. In the aftermath of the scramble, African leaders and visionaries have worked tirelessly to reclaim their heritage and forge a path towards self-determination. The struggle for independence in the mid-20th century was a testament to the indomitable spirit of Africa's people. Today, the continent is home to vibrant cultures, dynamic economies, and a growing sense of unity and pride. Africa's story is not one of victimhood but of strength and perseverance. The scramble for Africa may have been a period of exploitation and upheaval, but it also revealed the enduring spirit of its people. Through the trials and tribulations, Africa has emerged stronger, with a renewed commitment to building a future that honors its rich history and diverse identities. As we look to the future, it is crucial to remember the lessons of the past. The scramble for Africa serves as a reminder of the dangers of greed and exploitation and the importance of respecting the sovereignty and dignity of all people. By acknowledging this history, we can work towards a more just and equitable world, where the voices and aspirations of all nations are heard and respected. In the end, the story of Africa is one of hope and resilience. The continent's journey is far from over, and its future is bright with promise. As Africa continues to rise, it carries with it the strength of its ancestors, the wisdom of its leaders, and the dreams of its people.